My name is Caroline Whitmore. I'm 61 years old, a retired high school principal, and I live in a quiet neighborhood in Austin, Texas. I raised my son, Nathan, on my own after his father walked out when Nathan was 10. I had a mortgage, a full-time job, and a little boy who needed me to be both mom and dad. And somehow, we made it. Nathan was always bright, quiet, focused, vocal. I pushed him to dream big and made sure I did everything I could to support those dreams. I skipped vacations, turned down promotions that required longer hours, and saved every extra penny I had. When he got into Rice University, I cried like a child. He graduated with a degree in software engineering and landed a great job in Dallas. I was proud, deeply proud. So when he called last fall to tell me he was engaged to Ashley Delacroix, a beautiful woman from a well-known Houston family, I was thrilled for him. He sounded happy, and that's all I ever wanted. We talked about the venue, flowers, the rehearsal dinner. I offered to contribute financially. He didn't ask, but I knew they were planning something extravagant, so I stepped in. Quietly. I wired $20,000 to cover the photographer, cake, and some early deposits. That morning I was sipping my coffee when his name popped up in my inbox. No subject line. Just Mom, quick update. I clicked it, expecting a schedule change or a hotel question. Instead, I read, "After talking with Ashley's parents, we feel it's best if you join the wedding via livestream. It'll be professionally filmed and you won't miss a thing. Hope you understand." No, I'm sorry. No, I love you. No call. Just a link to a digital event. I sat very still. The coffee went cold. My hands didn't shake. I didn't cry. I just read it again and again. And then I whispered to myself, "Okay, I know what to do." Because this wasn't just about a wedding. This was about being erased politely, digitally, and without remorse. And if I was no longer welcome in the room, then I would no longer pay for the lights to stay on. There's something strange about reaching your 60s and realizing you're still being edited out of your own life. I wasn't perfect. I was firm, structured, and maybe a little too straightforward for some people's taste. I never sugar-coated things. Never played the Southern charm card, even though I lived in Texas all my life. But I loved my son with every fiber of my being, and I showed it not through words, but through action. When Nathan was in middle school, I taught summer classes just to afford his braces. When he wanted to attend a robotics camp in Colorado, I sold my grandmother's silver to cover the airfare. Every big step he took, I was there behind the curtain making sure the stage was steady. And I never asked for anything in return. I knew Ashley came from a different world. Her family name was on buildings. Her mother wore heels to brunch. Her father once told me at a fundraiser that he respected educators in the same tone you'd use to thank someone for taking out the trash. Still, I smiled. I nodded. I stayed in my lane. But the email made one thing clear: my presence, my voice, my very being didn't fit their image. I wasn't elegant enough. I wasn't silent enough. I wasn't what they wanted the mother of the groom to be. They didn't say it outright. They didn't have to. When a person invites your money but disinvites your body, they're not saying you don't belong, they're saying you're useful, but not presentable. That kind of rejection doesn't yell, it whispers in perfectly curated sentences and signed checks. I wasn't upset about missing a ceremony. I was devastated because my son, the boy I carried through every storm, decided I was a liability. That stung more than I had words for. But instead of unraveling, I did what I've always done. I adjusted. Because if I was too much for their wedding, then I'd make sure I wasn't too much for their bank account either. After finishing my cold coffee, I changed into something decent and drove to the First National Bank just off Barton Springs Road. The parking lot was half empty, the kind of calm that made the moment feel even more surreal. I'd been coming to that bank for over 30 years. They knew me by name. Katrina, the branch manager, greeted me with a warm smile. "Good morning, Ms. Whitmore. Everything all right?" "Just need to cancel a pending wire transfer," I said, setting my purse on the counter with quiet finality. She blinked, gently pulling up my account. "The one scheduled for next week. $40,000 to," she paused, reading, "the Delacroix Foundation Venue Holdings." I nodded. Katrina hesitated. "It hasn't processed yet. You're just in time, but there might be a cancellation fee." "That's fine. May I ask, is everything okay?" I gave her the same answer I've used my whole life when things weren't. The circumstances have changed. She didn't press, just printed the cancellation form and slid it across the desk. I signed without flinching. That was supposed to be my final contribution. $40,000 on top of the $20,000 I'd already sent. $60,000 total for a wedding I wasn't even allowed to attend. Not anymore. As I walked out of the bank, the air felt different, lighter, sharper, not like anger, more like clarity. I wasn't sabotaging anything. I wasn't retaliating. I was simply withdrawing from a contract that had been rewritten without my consent. That afternoon, I turned off my phone. No explanations, no guilt. In the quiet of my kitchen, I opened a bottle of Merlot I'd been saving for the rehearsal dinner. I poured a glass, took it out to the back porch, and let the Texas sun settle on my shoulders like a blanket I didn't know I needed. I watched the wind move through the trees, listened to the birds, let the silence stretch out wide and full. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about what Nathan needed or what I should do next. I was thinking about me. Because sometimes strength isn't about showing up. It's about knowing when to sit down, cross your arms, and say enough. The next morning, my phone was a battlefield. 6 missed calls, 4 voicemails, a dozen texts. All from Nathan. At first, his tone was clipped and formal. "Mom, I noticed the wire didn't go through. Can we talk?" Then came the guilt. "This isn't like you. Ashley's family is really stressed." Then the passive aggression. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." I didn't respond. By noon, a new email appeared in my inbox, subject line clarifying things. I clicked. "Mom," it began. "Ashley and I were hoping to avoid any drama. The livestream was meant to include everyone, without making the event too big. Her parents are traditional, and they've invested a lot into this. We're trying to keep things curated, elegant. We didn't mean to hurt you. If you'd reconsider sending the payment, maybe we could revisit your attendance." There it was. Not an apology. A negotiation. My presence was no longer a given, it was a bargaining chip, a bonus gift that might be revisited if I complied. I stared at the screen, realizing that somewhere along the way, I had stopped being his mother and started being a potential liability, an inconvenience with a checkbook. They didn't say it directly, but the message was clear. I was only valuable if I contributed quietly. Ashley's voice echoed in the subtext, polished, composed, rehearsed, the kind of woman who could say "we love you" and "you're not invited" in the same breath and still smile through brunch. I didn't answer the email. I didn't return the calls. I sat in my living room, the late afternoon light pooling through the curtains, and I breathed. Sometimes silence is not avoidance, it's power. I didn't need to explain myself. Because somewhere deep down, Nathan already knew. He knew what I had given. He knew what he had asked me to surrender. And he knew what I was finally refusing to give up. Me? Not my money, not my time. Just me. And that was the first time in years that I realized I hadn't really lost anything at all. It was just after 8 p.m. when someone rang the doorbell. I was curled up on the couch with a book one tried reading 3 times already that day. I wasn't expecting company. I wasn't in the mood for it either. When I opened the door, I saw a familiar face I hadn't seen in years. "James?" He looked older, of course taller now, with a slight beard and tired eyes, but I'd know him anywhere. James had been Nathan's best friend since 2nd grade. He practically lived at our house back in high school. I used to call him my second son. He shifted nervously on the porch, hands in his coat pockets. "I'm sorry to drop by unannounced." I opened the screen door. "Come in, James." He stepped inside, glancing around like he was stepping back in time. Same couch, he smiled faintly. "Still comfortable?" I said. "Tea or something stronger?" "Tea's good." We sat in the kitchen, a quiet steam rising from our mugs. For a moment, we just sipped. Then he cleared his throat. "Nathan doesn't know I'm here," he said. He's spiraling." I said nothing. He told me what happened. About the email, the money, the wedding. Still nothing. "He knows he messed up," James added. "He just doesn't know how to fix it." I looked at him, steady. Does he want to fix it? Or does he just want the money back? James didn't answer right away. Both, he admitted. But I think deep down, he knows he crossed a line. I nodded slowly. He didn't cross it, he erased it. Between love and transaction. Between being my son and being someone else's puppet. James looked down at his tea. I came because I guess I wanted to say you didn't deserve that. You were always there, Ms. Whitmore. You showed up for every game, every science fair. You even helped me fill out my college applications when my mom didn't. His voice cracked a little. You were more of a mom to me than most kids get their whole life. I didn't expect that. It knocked something loose in my chest. Thank you, I whispered. James stood to leave. At the door, he paused. If there's anything Nathan can say to change your mind. There isn't, I said gently. I'm not punishing him. I'm just done financing a version of love that only exists when my account is active. He nodded. I get it, even if he doesn't. And with that, he left. And I stood in the doorway a little longer, letting the night air settle around me like armor. I wasn't alone. I was just finally seen. The wedding didn't happen, at least not the way they planned it. I didn't go searching for details, but in a town like ours, information has a way of finding you. A week after James visited, I bumped into Karen from the local florist while picking up groceries. She used to babysit Nathan when he was little. I heard about the Delacroix's wedding, she said carefully, watching my reaction. I just raised an eyebrow. They lost the venue, she continued. No payment came through, and the contract was canceled. Everything else unraveled after that. Caterer pulled out. The quartet canceled. Even the decorator backed out. I nodded, calm as still water. Later, I heard from a neighbor that they ended up hosting a small backyard ceremony at the Delacroix estate. About 20 people, just family, or at least the family they chose to include. I wasn't invited. No call, no follow-up, not even a forwarded photo. And for once in my life, that absence didn't cut me. It freed me. Because I finally understood something I'd refused to face for years. Being part of someone's life should never come with terms and conditions. It shouldn't require silence, sacrifice, and selective appearances to fit the mood of a curated event. I didn't mourn missing the ceremony. I mourned the moment I realized I was never meant to be part of the picture they were painting, only a shadow behind the frame. And if all I ever meant to them was a quiet signature at the bottom of a check, then no, I wouldn't be standing in the audience while they played pretend. Let them toast their curated love. Let them pose for their filtered memories. Let them have their quiet little party without the woman who made it all possible. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't standing outside the window watching something I built be taken away. I was walking away before the door was ever opened. And that was power. 3 days after the backyard wedding, I received one last email from Nathan. Subject line, I owe you more than this. It was long, emotional, rambling in parts, half apology, half justification. He said he didn't know how to balance Ashley's expectations and mine. Said he felt pulled between two worlds, and that he panicked, that he thought if he could just get through the day, we could talk later. He wrote, I know I hurt you, Mom. I just didn't know how to say no to her parents. They have a way of making everything sound final. And there it was again, their way, not his. He didn't own what he did. He explained it, softened it, framed it as confusion instead of a choice. He signed off with, please don't shut me out. I still need you. I read the message once. Then I archived it. Not out of spite, but because I was tired of needing to be needed just to feel loved. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for the perfect apology. I wasn't interested in fixing something that had been carefully and consciously broken by someone who thought I'd never walk away. What I felt was quieter than anger. It was clarity. The next morning, I opened the curtains early. The Texas sun poured in like gold. I put on my walking shoes, made myself a proper breakfast, and left my phone on the kitchen counter. I joined a pottery class at the community center on Thursday afternoons. I went to book club on Wednesdays. I met an old colleague for lunch and laughed until my cheeks hurt. I started showing up in places where I wasn't an accessory or a checkbook or a placeholder. Just a woman. Just me. I made a new rule for myself, one I keep on a sticky note by my bedside. If my presence is negotiable, then so is my effort. Let me say that again for anyone who needs to hear it. If your presence in someone's life is always up for debate, always conditional on how convenient, how quiet, or how generous you can be, then your effort, your time, your care, those things can be conditional too. Nathan and I, we still haven't spoken. Maybe one day we will, maybe not. But I know one thing for sure. When someone teaches you that your love only counts when it costs you everything, the most loving thing you can do for them and for yourself is stop paying the price. So you don't have to attend every event you're disinvited from. You don't have to fund your own erasure. And you certainly don't have to burn yourself to keep others warm. So here I am, 61, sitting on my porch in Austin, watching the sky soften into evening. Peace doesn't always come with a grand declaration. Sometimes it arrives in the form of quiet no's, unanswered texts, and a canceled wire transfer. And sometimes the most powerful kind of revenge is finally choosing yourself. If this story resonated with you, share it, leave a comment, and don't forget to like and subscribe, because sometimes the strongest kind of love is the one you finally give to yourself.